Acharya Shri Shri Srimad Srila Bhai Chandralal Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Nama Acharya Shri Thakur Haridas ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गिराधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरिवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। गंगा देवी की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन डीवीटी संस्थापक आचार्य श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। गौ प्रेमानंदे। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Okay.
Haribol. They made it too short. So let us, with the three loud Haribols, let us welcome His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu and Sri Murti Mataji. Haribol! So before I begin introduction, I wanted to quickly mention the young kids. You have separate class. You are welcome to go there. I think there are not many older kids. Haribo! Thank you for. It's actually in spiritual life, whatever we offer to gurus is always short. So somehow or the other they just can make it meaningful. So thank you very much. So some of us are familiar with Mukunda Prabhu. He came here last year. Some of you may not be familiar, so I just wanted to quickly introduce Prabhu. Many of us coming from India, we have heard about Bhagavad Gita, importance of Bhagavad Gita, but still many of us hardly ever get to read Bhagavad Gita. So even though we get Bhagavad Gita, sometimes we may be fortunate enough to get Bhagavad Gita as it is also, and we keep the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So we usually don't get to read it also. But Prabhuji, at the age of 14, at the age of 10, he started learning about yoga, becoming vegetarian, even though he was born in the US.
Yeah.
So Prabhuji,
Los Angeles.
So at the age of 14, he came across, by then he already read many other versions of Bhagavad Gita, and he was dissatisfied, and he finally got hold of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And last year he was describing how, guided by Paramatma, at the age of 14, he was looking for a temple to find more information, and somehow he magically ended up near the ISKCON temple in LA, and he continued his journey from there. And he has been practicing Krishna consciousness through thick and thin for last 52 years. So certainly, when we hear Srila Prabhupada, I think in Mayapur he mentioned once, and maybe in other places also, where he said, when Prabhupada was coming to the West, he struggled for an year, and but eventually it picked up. And when he told his disciples that Krishna has sent all of you to take birth in America, so that when the right moment comes, all of you will come and help me. And we can see, when we see the life of Sri Mukunda Datta Prabhu and so many other illustrious disciples of Srila Prabhupada, we can clearly see these are all Karana Janma, people who took birth because of the higher purpose. I was also thinking, how many of you got an opportunity to go to the Maha Kumbh Mela and took bath there? Some of you. Maybe I should ask the other. How many of you didn't get a chance to take a dip in the glorious waters of Ganges and Yamuna? So I was just reading recently in the 10th canto, Krishna himself mentions, even even after extended bath in pilgrimage places like Ganges, one may get purified after an extended time, but 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 with sadhu sangha, we can actually have real impact. And Prabhupada writes, how can we get sadhu sangha? He says by attentively hearing them. So in one sense, even though many of us didn't get an opportunity to go to Mahakumbha Mela, we are actually getting much more powerful. Uh, so it's by Krishna's kind arrangement that Mukunda Prabhu and Srimurti Mataji kindly arrived here. So for the next 1 hour and half, hopefully however long you have questions for, we can continue to take his association. And sadhu means someone who cuts our illusion. One of the definitions I heard. I requested Prabhuji to speak something that can actually make us understand the real importance of spiritual life and prioritize it. So when we hear from someone as powerful and as empowered as Mukunda Prabhu, we may hopefully get some power to finally make the move. So we have heard many times, we are not the body, but hopefully we'll get to practice that after hearing this session. So with a loud Haribol 3 times, let us open our heart and open our hands and welcome His Grace Mukunda Prabhu. Haribol! Haribol! Haribol!
Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swakalantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadagamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajeevam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagadavita Shri Vishakam Vitam He Krishna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radhakanta Ramachute Tapta Kanchana Gaurani Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusude Devi Pranamami Hari Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Madhgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampayah Pitva Hrishyayustad Priyajanaha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur prays at the end of his 10th canto commentary, My dear Lord Gopal, only if you accept my words as your cows can they provide sweet milk and give pleasure to your pure devotees. I have to pray like this and ask all of you to please also pray for me that I can say something of worth for someone here. We've been asked to speak about Sadhu Sangha and about the importance of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What was the other topic? I don't remember.
Union.
Yeah, we'll talk about demigod worships as that contrasts with pure devotional service. What else? How to
Daily walk to chant regularly.
and how to develop seva bhava, you said. Yeah, no. So, as he said in the beginning, this comes from Sadhu Sangha. In commentaries on 3rd Canto, Chapter 25, Text 25. Anybody know that? 3rd Canto 25.25. I'll give you a hint. Satam prasangar mamavirya samvido ityadi. Yeah. Go ahead. You say it. Bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha ashu apavarga vartmani. He's frantically trying to find it so that the Joshnat Ashwa Pavarga Vartmani Shraddharatir Bhaktir Anukramishyati means that in the beginning, if we just associate with Satam, those who are honest, sadhus. Sadhu means he's honest, somebody you can trust. Not opposite of a politician or a car salesman or anybody else with an obvious motive. So Satam Prasangat, when you hear in the association of such persons about Krishna, Mama Virya Samvido, these topics of Krishna become infused with a special potency that doesn't happen otherwise. If you hear from a non-devotee, that same katha may even contaminate you. If you hear from a tepid devotee, casual devotee, it will not have very much effect, but it won't harm you. But if you hear from a pure devotee, it will very much purify you. You'll feel it immediately. So this is why it's said, Satam prasangat mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha. And it becomes medicinal. And Krishna katha becomes like a medicinal elixir. When we get to an Ayurvedic doctor, he sometimes gives you a rasayana, right? So it's a kind of a medicine. And it will purify the heart. And we feel that purification. It's definitely noticeable. So, bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha. This katha becomes very pleasing not only to our heart, but to our ears as well, because Bhagavatam is full of beautiful poetry. We recited several verses this morning in the temple class also about this. And when you hear like this, potent Krishna katha from a sadhu who's really living this Krishna katha, then tad joshanat ashu apavarga vartmini. Very quickly, that enthusiasm places you on the path toward liberation. And you progress in stages, step by step, in a certain order. You will progress. And you can gauge your progress because it is a science. There is a definite order. It's a scientific process. If you follow it, you will be able to measure your spiritual advancement. What does it begin with? Shraddha. Shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramashyati. Adau Shraddha. In the beginning, we have to invest our faith. Where do we invest our faith? How much faith do you have? If you think that you have some faith, you're wrong. Everybody in this room has 100% faith, but that faith is not all invested 100% in one topic. That's the problem. Some of our faith we're giving to Krishna, some of our faith we're putting towards Maya, some of our faith so many things we're doing. Bohu shakha hyanantascha buddhyo avyavasayinam, Krishna says. Person who is not steady in devotional service, one day he's a devotee, the next day he's a demon, the next day he's something else, a Buddhist or whatever. So the faith is not stable. But if we have that faith and we invest that faith in sadhu sangha, association with devotees, then we come to the next stage. What's the next stage after sadhu sangha? Adau sadhu sangha, atha bhajana kriya. Yeah. Adau shraddha, tata sadhu sangha, atha bhajana kriya. Naturally, the effect of associating with devotees is that we will be placed into the process of bhajana. Bhajana means chanting sankirtan like we were just doing, and it means hearing Bhagavad Gita like we're doing now. It means also taking prasadam, it means rendering service. All these things are bhajana kriya. By doing these things, there's a definite effect. And what is that? That's the next stage. Anartha nivritti, all the ugly things that are within us, and be honest, it's there. all the bad habits, all the misconceptions, all the doubts, all the material desires, all the confusion, it's all cleaned up. It all becomes washed away by the potency of this strong spiritual input. And when we are cleansed, more or less, praya, cleansed, almost completely cleansed, then what happens? Tata sadhu sangha, nishtha, yes. We become fixed in our devotion. When your devotion is fixed like that, then there's no natural predators, so to speak. Any biologists here? Or kids studying biology? Yeah, so you've heard about natural predators. What happens when you introduce a species into a foreign environment where there's no natural predators? It takes over everything. So this is what it's like when we are in good association and we have removed all the, things that prey upon our bhakti, the things that will try to sway us from devotional service, then we become fixed. What happens as a result of being fixed in devotional service? Nishtha bhakti. Kya hoga? In Nishtha bhakti.
Ruchi.
Huh?
Ruchi.
Yes, ruchi arises. We get a real taste for it. And from that taste, it matures into asakti, attachment. Prabhupada also translates asakti as addiction. It's like an addiction, but it's a positive addiction. And that's really the dawning of love, that bhava comes out of this asakti, and bhava is nothing but the dawn of love, pure love of God, and prema. So, shraddha, ratir, bhaktir, anukrameshyati. The commentators on this verse tell us that bhakti in this verse means prema bhakti, real bhakti, not probate bhakti. In the beginning, when our faith is unstable, and we're just not really pure devotees yet, we're practicing probate bhakti because we have a sponsor in the form of the spiritual master who will keep us on track. But without him, we're likely to sway and go somewhere else. So this is how we become stable in devotional service, through sadhu sangha. Now, Jiva Goswami, I think it is in his commentary on first canto, 2nd chapter, he explains also very nicely that you can become purified by this sadhu sangha in these ways. What kind of sadhu sangha will purify you? He mentions 3 things. Anybody who attended sadhu sangha last year, you might remember this. Darshana, sparshana, sampashana. That means you see a pure devotee, you can become purified just by seeing this person. I can attest to that. I saw Srila Prabhupada, it was like the sun god walked in. He was just radiating spiritual power. And you could feel it. And then sparshana, what to speak of, you bow down and touch his feet. And sampashana is even better than that, because you can ask a question, you can get an answer, instantly your anarthas will be cleansed away, just like he was saying. The same thing will happen after many, many years of bathing in the Ganga or other rivers, but in half an hour you can purify yourself of the same anarthas that took years just from taking bath only. This is the power of satsanga. So we're advised to seek out this association wherever it's available, however much we can take it, but we're always advised to do this. This is how you develop stability in seva bhava. And it's also how you develop a taste for the holy name, because Vasudeva Katharuchi, Syan Mahatstevaya Vipra. What's the first line of that verse? Vasudeva Katharuchi, Syan Mahatstevaya Vipra Punya Tirtana Shevanat. No. Huh? Just now, we're all having a memory lapse, it seems. Shushusho Shraddhanasya. When you faithfully serve what kind of devotee? Punya Tirtha Nishevana. Punya Tirtha. That means a pure devotee, a walking holy place. If you can find that devotee and you faithfully serve that person, then from that service, automatically you will get detachment from this world and you will get a great taste for hearing about Vasudeva. So how do we get a taste for chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare? We render service unto such a pure devotee. In fact, that is the process that we are all following. Who is that pure devotee that we're rendering service unto? Srila Prabhupada. He's already done all the heavy lifting. The Bhagavatam is there just waiting for us to take it off the shelf, undo the shrink wrap, open it up. It takes that much strength. But I think you have that much strength, physical strength. Whether you have that much mental strength, that's another question. I can't say. You know better than I. But all you have to do is open up the book and hear submissively while you're at the same time in your life trying to render some service on the orders of Srila Prabhupada, and you'll be purified like this. It has been seen, it has been proven for many decades now. So this is how we advance in terms of developing our taste for the holy name or for hearing Bhagavatam Dono. So Punya Tirtha Nishevanat, it happens by serving a pure devotee. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nashta Praishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. One comes to Nishtha Bhakti by serving a pure devotee in this way. And that service is of two kinds. You can serve the book Bhagavata or you can serve the devotee Bhagavata. They're one and the same. So, people are generally distracted. Now, I was reading in chapter 4, I think it's text number 11 of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says some very clear things in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, it's text number 12 actually, chapter 4, text 12. He says, Kangshanta karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataha kshipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. What does it mean? Men in this world desire success and fruit of activities, therefore they worship demigods. Quickly they get the results in this way. Now Prabhupada has given a very, very, I want to say, Ganibhuta purport. I don't know how to say that in any language other than Sanskrit. Very highly condensed purport, power-packed purport. He says, there is a great misconception about the gods or demigods of this material world. Material gods. This is what we're talking about. There is such a thing. And men of less intelligence, although passing as great scholars, take these demigods to be various forms of the Supreme Lord. Actually, the demigods are not different forms of God, but they are God's different parts and parcels. God is one, and the parts and parcels are many. The Vedas say, Nityo Nityanam, God is one, Ishwaraha Paramaha Krishna. The Supreme God is one, Krishna. And the demigods are delegated with powers to manage this material world. These demigods are all living entities, Nityanam, with different grades of material power. Material power, not spiritual power, material power. This has to be clear. And they cannot be equal to the Supreme God, Narayana, Vishnu, or Krishna. Those three all being the same person. Anyone who thinks that God and the demigods are on the same level is called an atheist. And this is from Vishnu Purana, if I'm not mistaken. Pashandi, the word is there. Yastu Narayanam Devam Ityadi. Even the great demigods like Brahma and Shiva cannot be compared to the Supreme Lord. In fact, the Lord is worshipped by demigods such as Brahma and Shiva. And he's quoting Bhagavatam here. Shiva Virinchi Nutam. Anybody know another one? How about this? Kadachit Kadandi Taravipina Sangita Karavo Mudabhiri Nari Vadana Kamalasvada Madhupa. Ramashambhu Brahmasurapade Ganesh Archita Padaha Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatame. Brahma and Shiva and other demigods, Indra, they're all worshipping Ganesh, they're all worshipping the lotus feet of whom? Jagannath. Jagannath. So that's the first thing. We should not think that all the gods are all the same, they're all equal. They're not. Some of them are material, one of them is spiritual. Shiva, he's a special category. This is another thing we should mention. Lord Shiva, although he's not exactly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at the same time he's not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, if only life could be easy. How do we explain this? Well, we don't have to explain it because Brahma Samhita explains it for us. What is the verse? Who knows? Kshiram yatha dadhi vikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahi tataha pragad asti hetoho yash shambhutam abhitatha samupaite karyat govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. All the ladies know when you boil some milk, you let it cool a little bit, and what do you put in there? Yeah, you put some joran or something, lemon juice, just to make it into yogurt. So you can't say that it's not milk. It is milk still, but it's been curdled so that it's yogurt. Yogurt is the same as milk, and yogurt is also different than milk. In this way, exactly. Lord Shiva, you can say he's like curdled Vishnu. If Vishnu comes in direct contact with this material world, he curdles. And that's Vishnu. Just as milk coming in contact with any kind of acid, it becomes yogurt. So Shiva is in a special category. He's not, you cannot become Shiva. You cannot. He's in a special category of his own. You can become Brahma. In fact, you already did become Brahma. Every one of you. Do you remember it? Look at you now. What happened, Baba? It's said that our first birth in this material world is always Brahma because in the beginning, he's just giving you a slap on the wrist, right? But what happens when you take birth in this material world? It's a very intoxicating place. And you get infatuated with the principle of material life and think, hey, I can do things here. I can, there's a lot of facility here. We have this envy, this the Christians call it original sin. Means, we have some idea that we might compete somehow with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We might exploit his things, or at least we should evade his authority. Right? This is our envy, actually, of him. When we have that, we're not allowed to remain in the spiritual realm. We require some attitude adjustment. Attitude adjustment. That's called the school of hard knocks. You have to come to Maya, to the material world. This is the penitentiary, where people have to learn how to decriminalize their mentality. So, but in the beginning, we're given a birth as Brahma. It's the best facility of all the births. That is the highest one. If you blow it, then you come down a little bit. What do you become? Maybe Indra after that, or so many other demigods are there. They are jivas just like all of us. But they're highly, highly placed. So highly placed, you cannot imagine how highly qualified they are. But it is an advancement only on the path of karma. It's not a spiritual advancement, necessarily. Although they're pious. In that sense, it's spiritual. But, essentially their identity is a karmic one. And because of that, Shine punye martyalokam vishanti. They have to fall down again after some time. After you exhaust the term of incarceration that you spend as Lord Brahma or Indra or any other demigod, then you have to fall down again. Unless you became a pure devotee, in which you can always go back to Godhead. But generally we don't, and that's how we become humans. We're not even in the highest category anymore. Highest category is Devatas. And we've blown it. We're in the middle worlds. 3 worlds, right, we talk about. The upper, middle, and lower. So human beings are manifested on this platform of the middle planetary system. And even if it's as a human being, if you still won't learn, not don't learn. I said won't learn. It is volitional. This is the uncomfortable thing we have to come to grips with. If you still don't learn your lesson as a human being, then where do you go? Well, there's so many lower species than human beings also. Tiryagnoni, we call it. Horizontal birth. What does that mean? Which kind of creatures are horizontal? Quadrupeds, right? Horses, cows, the dogs, they're sideways, right? Tiryagni, sideways. It's like we have the Urvapundra we're all wearing, and some people have the Tiryagputra. So it means horizontal. And even then, sometimes you still go lower. Really, really stubborn ones and sinful ones. They become maybe, insects, germs. You can become what is that they call it? A neural net, biologists call it. These little one-celled organisms. That's as low as you can go. And people do it all the time. All those slots are filled in this material world. So the point is this. As great as they are, even they're worshipped by so many people, these devatas are not comparable to the Supreme Lord who never falls down. And he's defined in the Upanishads, in the verse that Prabhupada is quoting here, or paraphrasing, Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam ego bahunam yo vidithati kaman. There are so many eternal living beings. Actually, all of us are eternal. Our bodies are not eternal, zarur, but we are eternal. But we're going from one body to another because we refuse to recognize our eternal identity. That's the only reason. We would rather compete with God and evade his authority. And therefore we try it out life after life after life until hopefully we'll learn something. But nityo nityanam and chaitanas chaitananam, out of so many conscious living beings who are eternal in any world, but there's one of them who's special. Who's the special one out of all these? Eko bahunam yo vididhati kaman. That one person only who's fulfilling everybody else's desires and needs. Is it you? No. So eat that. Chew on that for a while and think about it. We're not the ones who are fulfilling everyone else's desires. That position is already taken, my friend. I'm sorry. No vacancy. So this is the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and so many devatas. I said in the beginning that, believe it or not, there are material gods. Now do you understand what that means? Yes, they're worshipable. They're very glorious living entities, no doubt. We want to give respect to everyone, but it is an offensive misconception to think that they're all the same. They're not all the same. Just like what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti deva vratan devan, pitrin yanti pitra vrataha, bhutani yanti bhutejya, or mad bhaktir yanti mamakam. That if you worship the devatas, you will go to the devata that you worship. If you worship the bhutas and the yakshas and the rakshasas, that's where you're going, right? If you're worshiping the pitris, the ancestors, you can also join them. It's not that all roads lead to Rome. And now, Bengalis especially, you've heard this philosophy, Jotomat Totopat. Everybody understand? There's as many paths that they're all the same. At least one, early 20th century, late 19th century reformer was preaching this philosophy. Neo-Advaita philosophy. Why Neo-Advaita? Because it's not really classical Advaita even. It's a European tweaking of Advaita, which was highly encouraged by the British. Now, why would the British want to encourage this nonsense philosophy of so-called, yatomat tatapadati, or whatever path you follow, it takes you to the same place? Why would they encourage that? The British encouraged this, Max Muller and others also Europeans in general, they very much encouraged Mayavad philosophy in particular, because they wanted to convince all the Indians at the time of rising nationalism, oh, you Indians, this is not your dharohar. You people are spiritual in nature. You should concern yourself with Brahma, Param Brahma. Because, even your Shankaracharya said, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. This world is false. Only Brahma is real. They're saying like this. So, leave this world to us. We'll govern your country for you. And you concern yourself with Brahman. And any path you want to take, it's fine. Yatomat tatapat. Cool. This is the problem, you see? And it has caused so much confusion ever since. Hinduism is in such a confused state right now, only because Hindus have lost view of what the real pramana is. What does pramana mean? It's a fancy Sanskrit word that means, epistemology, which is a fancy Latin word that means, how do you know something? How do you know what you know? Your means of proof. So in Vedic literature, the means of understanding anything is always what? Based on what? Shastra. Shastra yonitvat. Everything comes out of the Shastra. Maybe that some acharya is teaching something you don't know where it is in Shastra, but still he has the authority. It's assumed it's coming from Shastra. The point is that Shastra is the ultimate authority. So, people who do not study Shastra, they get very much impressed by all kinds of crazy theories and, frankly, just mischievous ideologies that are intended to serve some other purpose than Krishna's purpose. That's why Prabhupada also criticizes throughout his books people who take Krishna's book, Bhagavad Gita, and they write nonsense commentaries meant to establish the opposite of what Krishna intended. There are many ways to read Bhagavad Gita, it's a fact. But in all of them, it's understood that at the end of the conversation, what is Arjuna going to do? What will he do? He will fight. He's going to do his duty, and he's going to do it for whose pleasure? Krishna. Yes. So this is the real purport of Bhagavad Gita, the real purport of the Shastra, all the Shastras. Devotional service, actually. It's very plain. Once you hear from proper Paramparagat authority, it all makes perfect sense. But if you're hearing from someone who's deliberately trying to make it unclear so that they can pull the wool over your eyes and use you for some other purpose, don't be somebody else's useful idiot. This is the point. Then it's a problem. So, Prabhupada this is the first thing that he establishes. These special living entities are highly blessed, highly qualified. They have elevated themselves through karma, only through karma. Not through any other system, not by yoga, not by gyan, not by anything. Through karma only, they have qualified to be placed in mid-level cosmic management. Mid-level management of the cosmic manifestation. That is what these devatas actually are, according to Shastra. For those who learn from Shastra, for those who take the trouble to read the Shastras, this is what you will find. You will find this. Trust me, because I've done it. I tell people all the time, Bhagavad Gita as it is, he said already, I had read so many editions of Bhagavad Gita. When I came across this one, I thought, oh, now what is this? Bhagavad Gita as it is. Oh, what does he think he is? This is the real Bhagavad Gita. And what about all those others? I had this attitude. And then I read it. And I can say honestly now, some 40 or 50 years later, that I really didn't have any clue as to what Bhagavad Gita meant. And the reason is that the people who read all those editions that I came across before Prabhupada's edition, they also didn't know what it meant. Because they wouldn't follow this simple pramana, Shastra Yonidvat. They wouldn't accept the Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu. That you have to hear this in a bona fide disciplic succession, Guru Parampara. They didn't accept that process. They made up their own so-called Guru Parampara. They said that Shastra is not necessary, or I can write Shastra also. So anything they need to say, they will say. This is the nature of a cheater. So, and I can say honestly, within the last 5 decades or so, everything that I've seen in these purports, even those things that I had some doubts about in the beginning, I've compared them to all the major commentators on Bhagavad Gita, all of them. They all extremely consistent. And Prabhupada says, actually he says very little that is original. Mostly what he's saying is paraphrasing of his own predecessors or the Vaishnavas in general. And it is Vaishnavas who matter also. This is another thing, because what does Krishna say so many places throughout Bhagavad Gita? Bhaktyamam abhijanati. You can understand this thing by bhakti. And he tells Arjuna, because you are my devotee, you can understand this thing. That implies at least that it is meant for the devotees. I'm telling this to you, he says, Arjuna, because you're my devotee, and therefore you can understand it. So it is the Vaishnava's sammata that actually matters here. We don't need to hear from yogis, we don't need to hear from poets, we don't need to hear from politicians. My God, enough of them have written commentaries on Bhagavad Gita also. It's just a never-ending stream of clowns who want to chime in and give their 2 cents on Bhagavad Gita, which is nonsense. And the one consistent common denominator that they share, no Krishna. Sweep him out of the picture. Do whatever you want, just keep paying me money, and everybody's fine. Everything good. This is cheating. This is cheating. Real surrender, real Bhagavad Gita means you hear what Krishna is saying, you act on what Krishna is saying. That's what Arjuna did. And that's how Arjuna won that war, even though they were far outnumbered by the Kauravas, is it not? Yes. We know the storyline. Well, this is how it happens. You have to be transparent enough to accept what Krishna is saying, embrace what he's saying, apply what he's saying, and then transmit it. In other words, well, in Mahaprabhu's words, Jare dekhe tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Or, Bharata bhumite hoila manusya janma jar janma shartha kori koraparatakar. This is the purport. So, demigods are very powerful, but they cannot be equal to the supreme God, Narayana. Yet, curiously enough, there are many human leaders who are worshipped by foolish men under the misunderstanding of anthropomorphism or zoomorphism. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada said this about, well, India in general, I think, but Prabhupada said Bengal in particular. There's a new incarnation on every street corner every year. This Baba, that Swami, this one, that one. We just look on the internet, you'll find all of them are there. And all of them are equally clowns saying the same nonsensical, bakavas. I have to say. I'm not going to mince any words. I'm telling you my own half a century of experience I'm speaking from. I have read the commentaries. These people are not authorized. They're not saying the same thing that the tradition says, period. And that carries a lot of weight. So, but, there's a sucker born every minute, P.T. Barnum said. And so these people thrive on suckers, people who want something cheap, something easy, that you don't have to pay for. These are the ones who get taken for a ride. But nobody can pull the wool over the eyes of somebody who is reading Prabhupada's books. And that's why we encourage you. Do not leave the thing sitting on the shelf as it is. Open it up and read it. So, Prabhupada continues here. Iha devataha denotes a powerful man or demigod of this material world. It's kind of interesting. He puts them in the same category, isn't it? Because really they are in the same category. What is that category? Karma. They are conditioned souls. even though they're worshipped. I mean, even in this world, we see there many of our peers are worshipped by those who are lower than us, is it not? People are ready to worship somebody like Elon Musk. Except maybe in this part of the country. But, yeah, so anyway, devatas and powerful men, they're kind of in the same category. But Narayana, Vishnu, or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, does not belong to this world. And then he quotes Shankaracharya. Even Sripad Shankaracharya, the leader of the impersonalists, maintains that Narayana or Krishna is beyond this material creation. Who knows that? How do you say that in Sanskrit? Narayanaha paro vyaktat. This is a direct quote from Shankaracharya's Shiridik Bhashya. So, however, foolish people, Kritagnyana, that means people whose intelligence is stolen, worship the demigods because they want immediate results. This is the key, according to Baladev Vidyabhushan, when he, in his commentary on this verse, he raises the question, why do people worship these living beings, whether they're humans or demigods? Why do people go for this? And the answer is very simple, because you get a quick result. And that's what we're interested in, isn't it? We want a quick, fast result. This comes back to the Upanishadic dichotomy. Are you going to choose Shreyas or Preyas? What's the difference? Shreya. What does Shreya mean?
Beneficial.
Super excellent. High thing. Perfect, perfectly preeminent. Shreyas. And Preyas, on the other hand, means immediately appealing thing. Maybe not so high, maybe not even good for you. Like ice cream. Because there's so many kids here, you have to... every kid would just only eat ice cream, right? If the parents let them. But the parents are thinking of Shreyas. So why not extend it a few years? Where every parent is planning for their child's education, why not extend it a few years to include after death also? Do you think that's not your responsibility? Where are they going to get it from? If not the parents. They're not going to get it in the school system, my friends. You know that. Okay, let's focus. Important points are being made here. We have to be tuned in. Shreyas versus Preyas. Preyas is the immediate, short-term, appealing thing. Shreyas is a long-term, higher thing, super excellent thing, and in your better interest. And people generally, what do they choose? They go for Preyas, always. Because we're like children. Spiritually, we're undeveloped in that way. We're immature spiritually. This is why. But Baladev Vidyabhushan says this is why people worship devatas. Only reason. We already know this if we're Indians. That's why now Sai Baba, practically the Shirdi Sai Baba, now he's practically been elevated to the status of a demigod, isn't it? Temples everywhere. And it's increasing. Because, people, hey, I need money and this guy's giving money, so whatever. Anything for money. So this is not spiritual life. This is bribery, frankly. And when we're honest, we can admit this. But, if we're not honest, then of course we get uncomfortable hearing these things. But Narayana is beyond all of this. So they get the results by worshiping devatas or worshiping anybody. You will get the result. But they don't know that results obtained in this way are temporary and meant for only less intelligent persons. Because what goes up must come down. Remember we talked about this with regard to our birth as Brahma. Where is it now? You all took birth as Brahma. Even you. Remember? Yeah, you. You used to have 4 heads. Now some of us only have 4 eyes. There's a joke about this. There was a great culture of Panditya in the kingdom of Mithila in the old days. So one scholar came to another one who was very skinny man. And he said, no, he was skinny, but he also was blind in one eye. So he said, Indra has 1,000 eyes. Lord Brahma has 8 eyes. Everybody else generally has 2 eyes. Who are you, sir, with only 1? Not a very polite question, but this just shows the culture of the day. And the man, without missing a beat, he turned around and gave him the answer. He said, you would not know because for a thick-headed person, it's hard to perceive subtle things. Because he was a skinny guy, right? Skinny means subtle, halka. This is what the pundits do. Sanskritic education. You can do all this stuff in Sanskrit, So they used to do like that. But anyway, the point here is that people worship devatas for some immediate short-term benefit, and they consider that, they can convince themselves that they're religious by doing that also. Because it's a kind of dharma. It's okay. Now, it's interesting because in chapter 7, what does Krishna say about this kind of worship? Yajantiya vidhi purvakam. Right? Is it chapter 7 or maybe it's chapter 9? I don't remember now. Yajanti avidhi purvakam. Krishna says to worship these devatas like this for material purposes, it's okay, it's there in the Shastra, but he actually says it's not there in the Shastra. Avidhi purvakam. Avidhi purvakam means there's no injunction that you should do like this. We know, unless you go to see some Ponga Pandit, if you go to see a real Pandit, Karmakanda Pandit, he knows what he's doing. He's following the Shastric injunctions. And still Krishna says, no, it's avidhi purvakam, because actually it's against the very principle of spiritual life. The spiritual principle is devotional service. Yeah. Ye pyanya devata bhakta, yarante shraddhayan vitaha, tepi mam eva kanteya, yajanti avidhi purvakam. They're actually supposed to be worshiping me. That's what he says here. But, they're not following the rules because they're surrendering to some other devata instead. Now, why are they surrendering to other devatas? We mentioned already one reason. They get quick results. But what do they want? What kind of results do they want? This is the essence. Baladev Vidyabhushan, in his commentary, he begins with this point. They are impelled by their anadi karma, their samskaras, that is to say. Anadi vasana, niyantrita. They're impelled by their, vasanas. We all have these tendencies that are the result of how many billions of eons of culture of sense gratification in so many different species, human and non-human. So it's kind of hard to shake that bad habit. And this is what impels us to chase after material dreams in this world. And because we get our dreams fulfilled quickly here by worshiping devatas, that's what we do. But it should not be mistaken as spiritual life, because it isn't. Hinduism, I think, is probably the only religion in the world that has a material dimension alongside the spiritual dimension. That's what I can say positively about the Abrahamic faiths, as primitive as they are. At least they tend to focus only on the spiritual. They don't go after the material things so much. But in his Catholicity, Vyasadeva decided to accommodate everybody. And that includes even people who are impelled by material desires. He doesn't want to leave them out. So he's given some injunctions that you can worship this one and that one, and Devata Puja has been introduced there. But actually the real principle is that we should take this human form of life and use it for what it can really give us. Only human life can liberate you from this karma chakra altogether, from samsara chakra altogether. Nothing else can do that. No animal species will allow you that opportunity, only human life. So we should use this life while we have it for that purpose. This is what's stated in the Bhagavatam also. Now I'm going to finish in this purport, because it's a lot of things here. Prabhupada says there's no need to worship these. An intelligent person is in Krishna consciousness, and he has no need to worship the paltry demigods for some immediate temporary benefit. He calls them paltry. Great personalities. who were worshipped by other great personalities, and yet he calls them paltry demigods. Paltry in the sense that no matter how great they are, no matter how spectacular their opulence is, it never leaves this karma realm. And the karma realm, for those of us whose birthright is devotional service and eternal life, that's a pretty bad deal. It's paltry, in other words. Material life itself, of any sort, it's paltry. So he's justified in saying that, although it's very shocking. The demigods of this material world, as well as their worshippers, will vanish with the annihilation of the material world. Everybody gets wound up. They all dissolve in due course of time. Both the deity and the worshipper on this mundane karmic level. Only if you come to the spiritual platform are you freed from that destruction. This is an important point. That's why Krishna says, Nistraigonya bhava. Anybody heard this one? What's the whole verse? Nistraigonya bhava. Nistraigonya bhavarjana. Nirdvandva nitya sattvastho niryoga kshema atmavan. He's encouraging Arjuna to come to the spiritual platform above the three modes of material nature, because that's the liberated platform. That is spiritual life. So, the boons of the demigods are material and temporary. Both the material worlds and their inhabitants, including the demigods and their worshippers, are bubbles in the cosmic ocean. Again, the same idea is being illustrated very graphically. In this world, however, human society is mad after temporary things, such as the material opulence of possessing land, family, enjoyable paraphernalia. To achieve such temporary things, people worship demigods or powerful men in human society. If a man gets some ministership in the government by worshiping a political leader, he considers that he's achieved a great boon. How many Tamil people are here? Anybody here from Chennai or some other place in Tamil Nadu? I think we're mostly Telugu log. You all know about Hyderabad, right? Every 10 feet in Hyderabad, there's a Lakshmi wine store. or Sneha fresh chicken. That's another one, right? I know, because I spent a lot of time there. But one time I asked one of my Tamil friends, why is it that they keep electing this DMK government? Because everybody knows they're nonsense, but they keep electing them. And he told me, well, actually, what initiated this discussion to begin with, we were driving down that, MGR road on the coast. And there was a traffic stop, and all these tough-looking cops are stopping any van or car that has too many young people in it. You know what that means? You all understand? Yeah, so I asked him, what's going on here? He said, well, these are the political parties. They hire these kids to go out and distribute rupee notes and just say, vote for our party. And we'll give you money. Pure bribery. And, we know where you live if you decide not to vote. So how did we get on this topic? But, people do this. They will, even though they know that the government is nonsense, but they'll do this because they have a short-term interest. This is the point. This is prayas versus shreyas. It's so bad that in Tamil Nadu, we were driving from, where was it? Like way south, like from, what is that place called? Nagarkoil. Nagarkoil to Tiruchendur, through just backwoods areas. And the road was so terrible. So, they told me they call this a DMK road. Anyway, we don't want to hammer on the politics too much. It's getting like that in the United States also, have you noticed? Anyway, so to achieve such temporary things, people worship the demigods or powerful men in human society. If a man gets some ministership, adi. All of them are therefore kowtowing to the so-called leaders or, quote, big guns, end quote. in order to achieve temporary boons, and they indeed achieve them, such things. Such foolish men are not interested in Krishna consciousness for the permanent solution to the hardships of material existence. They are all after sense enjoyment, and to get a little facility for sense enjoyment, they are attracted to worshiping empowered living entities known as demigods. Empowered. Empowered means somebody is empowering. They're getting their power from somebody else. And we hear in Brahma Samhita, where does Ganapati get his power from? Yeah, he worships the Lord. Surya Dev, Durga Devi even. They're all they're all getting their Indra also is mentioned. They're empowered by the Supreme Lord for the purpose of managing the Supreme Lord's cosmic manifestation. Isha alasya medam sarvam. Everything actually belongs to Isha. That goes back to the Ishopanishad. It doesn't say everything belongs to Indra or Brahma. No, these are mid-level management of the cosmic manifestation which belongs to the Lord. And there's only one Lord. That Prabhupada is quoted from Brahma Samhita. So, this verse indicates that people are rarely interested in Krishna consciousness. They are mostly interested in material enjoyment, and therefore they worship some more powerful living entity. So this is the principle. We should, this is materialism, in other words. We should think about what's beyond this, because you're going to lose all this facility. Even if you worship your demigod or your boss or whoever it is that you worship and get whatever it is that you want, you worship your thesis advisor, you worship your boss, you worship the politician, you worship some demigod, people don't even care who it is. That's how Sai Baba becomes such a big demigod to begin with. And, Christians also, I spend a lot of time in Tamil Nadu, so I know about this. What do they call them there? Any Tamils here? No, I don't think so, I'll tell you. They call them Pranam Kritva. Means money Christians. It's the same thing. They're just bribed. Plenty of money coming from outside organizations who are just, hell-bent on destroying our religion. And, they're ready to pay people off to convert. Yeah, so it's better, instead of becoming a pseudo-Christian or a pseudo-Hindu or a pseudo-anything, just come to the spiritual platform. Because that's the only thing that is going to relieve you from the miseries that always follow the happiness in this world. You may have so much happiness, but it's definitely going to be followed by misery. Anybody who's a few decades old or more, you already know this. If you're not old enough yet, just wait. You will experience it. You cannot have forever enjoyment, and certainly not what you want all the time. It doesn't happen. It will never happen. It has never happened. But why then? Why do we want that then? This is another question. Because it actually is within us to expect that. It is. And the reason that's the case is because we are eternal. But our eternality, we have to recognize that it takes a little work to resuscitate it. It's like unconscious at the moment. The program is still running, but it's been double-clicked and you can't see it. So, you have to bring it back on the desktop and get back into it. That is Krishna consciousness. Okay, so these are a few things we said in the beginning already. How do you activate this thing? Speed, what do they call that? Fast lane, express lane, whatever you want to call it. You associate with sadhus. Because in the sadhu sangha, everything else is automatic. The kirtan will happen. The taste for kirtan will happen. Seva bhava will happen. Sab kuch hota hai. But you have to take that association. Okay, so we'll stop here. Anybody have any questions or any comments? It's already 7:30. We have some time. Yes?
You said something about how only humans could get liberation.
Yeah.
But what about animals that are like really spiritual, like a temple dog or something?
Okay, good question. Krishna is not constrained. He can liberate anybody. But generally the process is that Human beings have to use their intelligence. They have to take to spiritual life. They have to practice it. They have to gain some realization. But if the Lord decides to give mercy to just anything or anybody, it can happen. What's another example of an animal who was liberated? Gajendra Mokshana, famous. He's an elephant. So the Lord can liberate anybody, but the general process is only human beings can take to this, because animals don't have that mental acuity that they can understand these things, because they're subtle. Even half of us don't understand it. What to speak of the elephants and other animals. But yeah, certainly there's some special mercy. That's like getting an honorary PhD. How many people get an honorary doctorate? Not so many. But it's a good question. Yeah, you have one.
As Hindus, we are fortunate to know about Krishna and Bhagavad Gita, but what about other religions like Christianity and Islam? So they don't know about this, and they don't get a chance also maybe, and they have different set of principles for eating habits and other things. So how do they get liberated?
Yeah, it's as I said, these are primitive religions, very primitive. It's a fact. We are fortunate to know about Krishna from birth, but Prabhupada said we are very unfortunate to know everything wrong about Krishna from birth. So, the Hindus, I would go so far as to say that the real advantage of taking birth in a Hindu family is that you have any concept of dharma, even if it's the wrong concept. Because more than a concept of God, the concept of dharma is what separates Hinduism from other religions. They don't have it. But you have to understand what that word means. And in many cases, it does not mean what you think it means. This is the point. So, anyway, we can understand this, what we have, and we can distinguish ourselves from these other Abrahamic faiths and other religions only by hearing from bona fide Guru Parampara. What is the message that is received in this succession? Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah. Just follow up question. So why did God created other religions and then other religions?
He didn't create them. They did.
Oh.
The same religion is given to everybody. Vedas are there, but some people, they're not interested. They want Yatamat Tatapat instead. They want Sneha fresh chicken instead. They want, 4 wives and, 72 virgins and all kinds of things they want. So, this is the same question was asked to Lord Krishna from Uddhava in Canto 11 of the Bhagavatam. And this is in a nutshell the answer that Krishna gave him. That, the same religion is dispensed to humanity, but people twist and twangle it in various ways according to their infinite desires. And so it ends up with this multiplicity of religions, so-called religions. So, they all have some degree of potency is still there. I'm not going to say they're worthless. They're okay if you can't do better, but I think all of you can do better. So, we should accept the thing paramparagat and practice that. Is that okay?
Yeah. So do you mean to say Hindus are more fortunate than the other religions?
In many ways they are. In some ways they're not. One of the ways in which Hindus are not more fortunate than other religions, I mentioned already, other religions generally don't have any conception of mundane religion. Hinduism does. That's out of its liberal spirit to involve everybody, to include everybody. But, but the idea is that, we should actually recognize that there's a difference between somebody who is just trying to come to the platform of spiritual life and somebody who is already on that platform. And there's a difference between a person who accepts Vedic authority and a person who does not accept Vedic authority. Even though both of them may have good qualities, both of them may be pious, humble, and devoted in so many ways, but to be under the auspices of the Vedic literature means to have perfect guidance. So we have to recognize that great boon that we have. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to remind you that we don't define atheism as disbelief in God. Our Shastras define atheism as disbelief in the Vedas. That's something to think about. There were a couple of other questions here.
What happens if you worship both the actual God and demigods?
That's mixed devotional service. And Kapila Dev describes that in Canto 3 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. You get a mixed result. You get some advancement from your pure spiritual cultivation, and you get some material advancement as well, but you definitely remain in the material world. This is how you become a demigod. These are called sakama devotees. They're devotees, but they have material desires. If they follow the principles of the Shastra very strictly, and at the same time maintain material desires, then they keep going up in the material world until they become Brahma, and there you have to make an ultimate choice, because there's nowhere higher to go materially. Either you will fall again or you will go back to Godhead. So that's ultimately what happens. What else?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Kind of related to this question, what I've observed is, seen at least a lot of Indians do demigod worship, because they probably don't know the difference. Besides, of course, the reason Prabhupada mentioned, like everything is the same, it doesn't matter whom you go.
Yeah, we don't know the difference because these guys are running around saying Yatamat Tatamat. What do you expect? Everybody's going to get confused. Any old timers here, you may remember, I don't see too many old timers here, but anybody who's older, they may remember when television, Star TV, and Astha and all these things first came out in India. One day it's the Buddhists, the next day it's Rajneesh, the next day it's ISKCON, and the next day it's Sufis, and even a theologian will become confused. Because the implicit message is that, well, they're all being broadcast, that means they're all the same. But they're not all the same. This is the problem.
And then also, I've seen, especially in, sometimes people just continue because their forefathers did it, and they are kind of hesitant that, it's okay, I understand, but they are superior, why not continue? What's the harm? Kind of what he asked.
I have no problem with that. If you
can elaborate a little on that.
Yeah, well, Manu elaborates on this also in Manu Smriti. He says that if there's a question of what is dharma, and there's a controversy, right? We all know controversies, isn't it? Even in ISKCON we have so many controversies. So he says, if there's ever any question as to what is dharma, then you just do whatever your forefathers did with the understanding that was dharma. In other words, whatever they understood and followed as dharma, you do that thing. He said if you do that, you'll not go wrong. Unless your forefathers are wrong. But that means that they weren't following. You just have to follow them. Evam param parapraptam. This is the thing. So it's innate conservatism is there. Yes. Is that okay?
I mean, so what is the advice? I didn't get it.
No,
What was the advice for those who are, there is a tendency to continue following the deity?
If you're blindly following your family tradition or just doing whatever your parents did or whatever, that's okay. If they themselves were following the thing which is coming from the Shastra. The problem is that at some point they begin to speculate and then they deviate from Shastra, and then from that point on everybody in the future becomes misled. That's why there's heavy karma attached to that. But otherwise, in principle, if we just follow whatever that was understood by our Purvacharyas or our forefathers as dharma, and was based on Shastra, that is to say, then we'll not go wrong. We may not go back to Godhead, but we'll not be degraded either. Is that clear now? Okay. What else?
I was reading the Sri Ishupanishad, and I think it was...
How old are you?
12.
Nice.
I think it was Shloka 7. They were talking about how Jesus Christ had followed Krishna and aspired to be like Krishna. But I've noticed in Christianity, they don't mention him at all. They don't mention the name of Krishna and what Jesus was based off of.
Yeah, I'm not sure that purport is mentioning what you understood, for one thing. And then second thing, yeah, you're quite correct. The Christians don't recognize Krishna. Modern day Christians don't recognize him. It's not to say that Jesus doesn't recognize Krishna, but modern day Christianity is perhaps a different thing than what Jesus taught. That's many people have that doubt. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. To reiterate a part of the lecture today about Shivji was like Shiva is not different from Bhagavan Krishna, but again Shiva is not the same as Bhagavan Krishna, and you gave the example about milk and curd, etc. Right? Now, when you are offering devotional services, if Shiva is not different from Krishna, is it the same as worshipping Krishna and Shiva?
Only if you are respecting Krishna with that understanding that he is the representative of Krishna. In that case, it's even better than worshipping Krishna. Because Aradhananam Sarvesham Vishnur Aradhanam Param, which means that of all modes of worship, worship of Vishnu is the best. Parantu. What is the second half? Tasmat Parataram Devi Tadyanam Samarjanam. The perfect worship is to worship that person who is the devotee of Krishna. And Lord Shiva, the Bhagavatam says, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. Shambhu is the foremost of all the Vaishnavas. So if we're worshipping with that understanding, then there's nothing wrong with it. It's very good. In fact, Lord Shiva has his own sampradaya, Vaishnava sampradaya, Rudra sampradaya. Later on, it was inherited by Vallabhacharya and his descendants. So that's still going on also. However, some devotees asked Prabhupada a similar question, can we worship Shiva in our temples? And with a few exceptions, Prabhupada generally did not encourage it because he said the Mayavad is so pervasive in society that when people see you worshiping Krishna along with Shiva, they'll just automatically make this assumption that they're one and the same, which they aren't. So we don't want to nourish that anartha, and therefore it's not something we would do in public. Having said that, Prabhupada told the devotees to put a small asana on the altar in London, he said, because the kirtans in Buri Place Temple in London were so ecstatic, Prabhupada said, Lord Shiva comes every night to attend the kirtan, so you should offer him a seat. That little asana is still sitting on the altar there, unobtrusively. So we don't draw attention to this fact, but it is a fact that you can worship Lord Shiva if you understand him in the proper siddhanta. But generally people will be confused by this, and that's why we don't talk about it so much. Is that okay? Clear?
Any questions from Mataji's?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not looking to see if they have.
I'm more sorry for the distraction before the conversation was happening. They were asking each other the question.
You know what happened to Prabhupada? Prabhupada was sitting in a lecture of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Prabhupada was paying full attention. The person next to him tapped him on the shoulder and asked him, can you clarify what did he just say?
Yeah.
About the lecture. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw this, and he pointed to the person he pointed to Prabhupada actually, and said, would you like to come up and give the lecture? In other words, they didn't tolerate it. Prabhupada would not even allow the noise made by ladies making garlands. Very quiet activity. But that he thought was too much of a distraction. So, rapt attention is what we read about in this first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to hear like that. I'm only saying it because you brought it up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So my question is like for kids we should give them only spiritual education, no material education, like how they will continue.
That doesn't sound very responsible to me. What's he going to do when he grows up?
It seems like from the discussion, right? It seems like everything is material, and maybe people should not expect much and just focus on spiritual education. So we are just trying to understand that from kids' perspective.
How do you reconcile these two worlds? That's really what you're asking, I think.
Yeah.
So well, in principle, the material world is useless. It's an illusory waste of time. But we are in this world, and we are absorbed in this world, and we have responsibilities in this world. And you cannot give up those responsibilities because that's dharma. We never say that the material world is to be completely rejected or ignored. That's what our Mayavadi friends tell us. They're the ones who say Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. We don't say that. We say even though this world is made, yes, it's mithya, but it doesn't have to remain mithya. You can take this world and you engage it in Krishna's service positively, and then it becomes Brahma. So, it's a different philosophy altogether. It's a very, very different thing. You have to train your children properly. You have to prepare them for life in this world because they have material bodies. What are they supposed to do? You have to do that. But you don't have to do it with the consciousness that life is about sense gratification or just fulfilling their own material desires. If you train them up how to engage with the world and within the world in devotional service, then that is the best thing, because you lose nothing. They still have their material life goes on, but it's not the focus any longer. Instead, they're actually going somewhere with their material life, through their material life. This material world has great value, but you have to utilize it in the proper way. This is our philosophy. So again, people make the wrong assumptions about this because the Mayavad influence is so ubiquitous everywhere. Everybody just seems to think that, this world is nonsense that should be completely rejected. That is Buddhist philosophy. That's also Mayavad philosophy. Not at all Vaishnava philosophy. Nahito, why did Krishna spend so much energy trying to get Arjuna to fight this mundane war if it was all nonsense? He should have told him just, go join the Ramanandis and smoke ganja in the corner. Right? So, this world has great utility, but we have to have the vision of, where it's going. I mean, the utility is meant for a goal, right? So we have to know what is our principle, what's our operating principle, what is our aim, what is our goal, and then we have to, everything in this life and in this world, we should galvanize around that. Then it becomes very productive. Look at it this way. Prabhupada gives this analogy. Vegetable knife. You can cut vegetables with it. You can cook sabzi and eat. Or, you can push the knife, instead of pushing the knife into a pumpkin, you can push the knife into the person next to you. It's an extreme difference, right? So, you have to use the world for what it's actually meant for. And this world is meant for serving Krishna. If you try to throw away the knife, then you get no benefit from it. And if you try to misuse the knife, then you also get no benefit. You end up worse than you started, actually. But you take the knife and you use it for Krishna's purpose. You cut up some sabzi, you cook and offer it to Bhagavan, and then you eat. And you lose nothing. But you gain so much. Is it clear? Devotional service means Hrishikesha, what is it? Hrishikena Sevanam. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam, sorry. We take these senses and we offer them into the service of the person who actually owns them. Okay. Igor. The microphone is getting out now.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So you're talking about like just follow your forefathers what they did, right? And many times
If they're properly guided.
if they're properly guided.
I only tell people who are from traditional Indian Hindu families.
Right.
You can't tell people who are from other
Other religions.
doesn't work.
Right. But in Hindu families, Prabhu, like there is a concept of this Kuldev and Kuldevi.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so how do we do that? Because if you follow your forefathers, you need to worship them.
Yeah.
And if you don't do, then you are a rebellion kid in the family.
Right.
So how do we do that with Krishna consciousness?
Just do it the way your forefathers did it. No problem. Let me tell you something. I go to Tiruschandra almost every year. Tiruschandra is the biggest Skanda temple in South India, practically second biggest Skanda temple there. And many devotees actually, they're from Brahminical families of the pujaris in the Skanda temple. ISKCON devotees. They're continuing with that seva. It's their job. And you know, Skanda is also a devotee. He's Lord Shiva's son. They're all Vaishnavas. There's no competition or anything. But they understand that, you know, he's not the supreme personality of Godhead. But he's very respectable personality. He can do a lot for us. We should, you know, there's no harm giving respect.
Yes, but I think
to demigods.
Right, but the problem comes when we learn, right, Krishna is supreme and we should do everything for Krishna.
Yes.
And
but Krishna himself is worshipping demigods.
Yeah.
And so are his devotees, the gopis.
Yes. Yeah.
See? Everything has its place in Krishna katha. We don't reject. This is the point again. Same point.
Yeah.
We don't have to reject everything is the same. But what changes is the heart. The consciousness, the understanding is different.
Right.
And we just basically, it's only a matter of removing this Mayavad nuisance from our hearts and from our intellect.
So my question was leading to Prabhuji, like for example, when a demigod's festival comes, let's say,
Shashta. Yeah.
Like for example, Ganesh Chaturthi or some
Namastasya, 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 namo namah.
Right. So in that, like we have to offer prasadam also. Now, how do we offer prasad to demigod before offering to Krishna?
Yeah, that's another thing. Well, you know, I can tell you what they do in Vrindavan, because we worship demigods in Vrindavan also. Mota Ganesh, Punana Bajar mein Mota Ganesh Virajman hai.
Yes.
Or Nandagaon mein Nandishvara, Shambhu hai. So they take whatever they offer to Krishna Balaram in the Nandagaon temple, they take it and they go in the courtyard, they offer it to Lord Shiva.
But that's
even in Jagannath Puri temple,
yes,
that Mahaprasadam cannot be distributed to anybody until Vimala Devi
gets it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's where our parents and our forefathers
They have a misconception.
because they have misconception.
Then you have to disabuse them of that misconception. You have to argue on the basis of Shastra. That means you have to know the Shastra. That means you have to open the Shastra. And you have to do it every day. Then you will be strong.
Thank you.
Naito, you let me talk to them.
Any other question in the back? Prabhu has a question. He has raised hand earlier in the back.
Yes.
Prabhu, I think it's all.
The mic is on.
So, Prabhu, my question is from yesterday's class. Like you were mentioning that we cannot just skim through Prabhupada's books and we have to get deeper into it. So, like, what are your some ways of, since like there are so many books and we have to have some speed, like how we go deeper into like
Speed? Why speed?
I mean, we keep some targets.
Who said that? Who taught you that?
Like we will finish this book in this much time. Like,
But who taught you that?
I think that's my understanding.
Show me the purport. This is what it means when we say Shastriyo Nidvad. You have to know the books. Whatever you're doing, it has to be you have to substantiate what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Read chapter 17, text 15 purport in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says very clearly there that, speaking in spiritual circles means that whatever you're going to do, whatever you're going to propose, whatever you're going to suggest or say, you have to back it up with the Shastra. And just like him, I told him, you have to know the Shastra, means you have to hear the Shastra. This is the problem. All this comes down to this deficit. We're not reading. And that's why we have these kinds of questions. So speed is, you have to internalize the topic that you're hearing. It's not a race of any sort. Their whole purpose should be different. Instead of, it's not like mundane fruitive activity that you have to knock off 6 errands in one morning, right? You're trying to effect a result that's in the heart. It's not an external accomplishment of any sort. When the heart changes, then you move on to the next verse. I don't mean that literally, but my point is this: you have to assimilate what you're hearing, and you have to take due time, and whatever time is necessary to get that. So you have to hear, and you have to hear very carefully, and you have to shravana, manana, nididhyasana. These 3 things Shankaracharya suggested have to go on. Is it clear?
Makes sense. Thank you, Prabhu. And Prabhu,
You have to hear in sattva guna patiently, in other words, and with the purpose of spiritual elevation in mind.
Yeah, and Prabhu, you were mentioning point about that our first birth being of Brahma.
Yeah.
So can you share is there some reference about this or how
Yeah, it's
we
throughout. It's pretty. It's not controversial or anything. It's well understood. I can't remember offhand where Prabhupada has mentioned this, but it's there. Yeah. You can look it up also.
Any other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. One question is when during the lecture when you mentioned the at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, if we look at the overall context or connotation, Krishna is essentially teaching Arjuna that this is how the world is, this is how you work, this is how I work, and you are supposed to fight now, and whether you fight or not is up to you. Now, in one of the major countries in the world, Bhagavad Gita, I read a news report maybe a few years ago, was banned for this reason, saying that Gita is teaching violence. Now, my question is how is it different from I have to use the word, people say, people blow up multiple places, you know what I mean. So,
no, I don't.
In the current world, in the Islamic religion,
You're
at least
talking about
some
terrorism?
sects. Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita teaches terrorism?
No. I'm coming to that. So, in some sects, obviously, Deobandi and some other sects, they teach Islam, the radical groups.
By the way, do you know what Deoband means?
No, I do not.
Deva Vandya. The place used to be a great center of Brahminical learning.
Okay. So, it is Russia that banned, I heard this was a few years ago.
Yeah, but this is another motive. I think it's fairly transparent. That's on the flimsiest of excuses. They're going to do whatever they have to do to attain their ends, which are, full of mundane motives as well. I wouldn't put much stock in that.
No problem. Hare Krishna.
Anyway, I could say more than that, but I think it should be clear enough. Never trust a politician.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
I've heard of people writing down the entire Bhagavad Gita in Russian.
Yeah, China also. you can't keep down the spirit. If somebody's sincere, he's going to find a way to practice devotional service.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Actually, I humbly want to ask how, if you want to share some of your memories with Srila Prabhupada.
I think, yeah, I do that all the time. First time I saw Srila Prabhupada was in 1976, June, when he came to Los Angeles for about a week. I was there already because I grew up there, and I was very young at the time. But one devotee had convinced me to come and see Srila Prabhupada, so I did. And when Prabhupada entered the temple at 7 a.m. to greet the deities, it was like the sun god walked into the room. He was just that effulgent, and really it's as if he just lit up the whole temple room. And I could instantly understand that he was not of this material world. It was just palpable in a non-rational sort of way. But, in fact, Prabhupada's whole demeanor and visage was so, it was just so arresting that I just was stunned watching him, as if mesmerized. I knew the words to the song that he sang, Jai Radha Madhava, before he sat down and gave the class. But I couldn't follow his kirtan because even though I knew the words, I just kind of forgot them because it was just so, every movement he made and every gesture he made, it was completely mesmerizing. And frankly, I didn't get a lot out of his lecture either because his Bengali accent was too difficult for me in those days to follow. Now I can follow. But in those days I was fairly new to Krishna consciousness. But he was talking about the 13 witnesses who note down everything that we do in this world and keep records on us. Chitragupta is even more observant than the Chinese Communist Party. And, everything is noted down and you have your credit score and it's all being, stored away for the judgment day, as it were. But this is what Prabhupada talked about. But I couldn't really understand much at that time, but I was very fortunate to see him. And throughout the week or so that he was in New Dwarka, I went to see him a few occasions and watched the class like that. One time we were sitting outside the temple, in front of the temple, when Godbrother and I were reading Chaitanya Charitamrita on the lawn. And we had a view towards Prabhupada's personal quarters, the outside door. That door opened up and all these American sannyasis came out, and in the midst of them was Srila Prabhupada, who was very small in stature. But although he was smaller than everyone around him, he just had this commanding presence that you just understood. He was like the sun and they're all like stars only. And he just stepped down the stairs and there was a car pulled up and waiting to take him away somewhere. I don't know where they went, but we were just, we felt very fortunate to see him. As I said in the beginning, just seeing a pure devotee of his stature is enough to give you every perfection. So the devotee that I was with suggested that if we have some flowers, we could offer some flowers to Srila Prabhupada. And I noticed that there were some flowers growing in the garden. And because I was only 15, I just fearlessly went and plucked those flowers and held them right inside the car window in front of Prabhupada. I don't think I would have that much sahas today. But Prabhupada took them. And then, the car drove off, and that was the sum and substance of my association with Srila Prabhupada. Never had any personal interaction, never received any letters, never got any personal instructions, never saw him again also. But, the thing is that I was brought to Krishna consciousness through Prabhupada's books, and I have been sustained and nourished, and I hope I've grown somewhat through those books. So, what that really means is that the same opportunity that I had is available to all of you as well. So, Prabhupada has many times explained that there are two kinds of association with a pure devotee. There's Vapu Sangha and there's Vani Sangha. And of those two, the Vani is considered to be more important because it's eternal. Vapu is no longer here. It was here, but no more. And, without the Vani also, you can't really properly appreciate even the Vapu Sangha. Many devotees who had his personal association after Prabhupada left, they went away because they were not deep enough in the philosophy. They decided to leave Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, the Vani is really important. But the Vapu is also very important, and it's very cherished memory of the only association that I had. Is that okay? All right. All right, it's getting late now, so unless there's any other burning questions, I think maybe we should adjourn for the night. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for listening attentively and asking your questions. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare.
Hare Krishna. So, it is our good fortune that we all get to hear. Prabhuji is here in the Bay Area for a few more days. I'll share in the group his schedule. Any of you are interested to follow him, get more association. It's actually very rare. Prabhupada said that he lives in his books. Many of us, as Prabhuji was mentioning, most of it goes above if we ever open it. But I was thinking Prabhupada may be existing in his words, in the books, but these devotees actually bring them out into life, and we can actually see, as when Prabhuji mentioned, that's the only interaction he had with Srila Prabhupada. It's not about the quantity, but it's about the quality. And just one such interaction and he's ready to give up what we call as a material life, and he has been exemplary devotional life for the last 50 years that he's leading is amazing. So we can all take some inspiration and see and take to some of the instruction Prabhuji gave to our heart and see how we can actually become more sincere and advance in bhakti. So we have some. Usually we end with a short kirtan, so if it's okay with all of you, we will do a short kirtan. Last year I remember because Prabhuji has been speaking every day almost for 4 or 5 hours, so we dedicated our kirtan for his pleasure. So we will do this time as well. Can we invite all the kids to come? So meanwhile, can we say Krishna Jai?
Who can sing? I can sing. Whatever. I can sing. Why are we singing? Do you want me to pull it up? Maybe I need some help. Maybe. Nana. Everybody's screaming, but I'm not. Quiet.
You know, you can go to prayers. It's already open. It's already open.
We will take turns. We take like one of them and then she does another point. Then one spin and each person gets it. Yeah. I'm very interested. Krishna jinka naam hai, Gokula jinka naam hai. Krishna jinka naam hai, Gokula jinka naam hai. Jinka naam hai, Gokula jinka naam hai. यशोदा जिनकी मैया रे, नंद जी बाबैया रे। यशोदा जिनकी मैया रे, नंद जी बाबैया रे। ऐसे श्री गोपाल को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। ऐसे श्री गोपाल को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। राधा जिनकी जया है, अरुण जिनकी माया है। राधा जिनकी जया है, अरुण जिनकी माया है। ऐसे श्री राधा को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। ऐसे श्री राधा को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। लूटा लूटा हरि भक्तन छायो, बाल बाल संग तेन सुनायो। लूटा लूटा हरि भक्तन छायो, बाल बाल संग तेन सुनायो। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। दुर्बला सुधा को लंच मचायो, रस जन को पान सुरायो। दुर्बला सुधा को लंच मचायो, रस जन को पान सुरायो। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। गुरु पांडव को युद्ध मचायो, अर्जुन को उपदेश सुनायो। गुरु पांडव को युद्ध मचायो, अर्जुन को उपदेश सुनायो। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। ऐसे लीला धाम को मेरे बार बार प्रणाम है। गोविंद गोपाल हरे गोविंद गोपाल
For all the Hare Krishna singers, ki jai. So we'll do Mahaprasade. Can you lead Mahaprasade, please?
I'm gonna need a little bit of the lyrics.
Lyrics? We'll get to the lyrics. No. It's all there. Go back to it.
Yeah. No. Korean. Why? Because why? Really good at it. No, my friend's one. You can take the mic.
Can you get a mic?
Krishna
श्रीमद् भगवत महाप्रसादम की Please come take prasad.